Hi, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Morgan. Today we are going to be making blackberry pies for my church's annual fundraiser. If you watched my last video, we just made cake, but now we are making pies. So I went ahead and made up the crusts for the pies since my little toddler was still awake. So I had to put him down for bed and my baby's down for bed. So now I have time to make these pies. I will insert a clip of me making the pies here and I will run you through how I made them. I am following the basic pie or pastry dough recipe in The Joy of Cooking. So I'm starting with 5 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of salt. I whisked that up, and then I'm adding 1.5 cups of chilled lard and 6 tablespoons of cubed butter. I cut all the fat into the flour mixture, and then I added 12 tablespoons of ice water with 2 tablespoons of white vinegar added to it. And then here I am just rolling out all of these pie crusts for double crusts. So now that you're all caught up on how we made these pie crusts, I am fluting the edges, and now I'm just pricking the bottom and the sides of my pie crust with a fork, just so if there's any air pockets, they are able to escape. And then the pie doesn't steam, so it doesn't get all soggy, because no one wants that. You want a nice, flaky pie crust, not a soggy one. Alrighty. So I have this pie crust done. Oh yeah, we're making blackberry pies. I don't think I ever mentioned that. I've never made blackberry pie before. I've really only made apple and coconut. Basically just my favorite pies. I've never actually made something kind of out of my comfort zone yet, and I figured blackberry pie sounded pretty easy, and I found a pretty easy recipe online, which I will link in the description box. So I figured I would go ahead and give it a try. So I'm just finishing up fluting these edges on the second pie, because my church asks everyone to bring in 2 pies. There we go. We have our 2 pie crusts ready to go, at least the bottom half. We still have a top half to do. But now we're gonna get started on the filling, which it's really super easy with the way that it sounds. So I have my big glass measuring bowl here, and I'm gonna measure out 3.5 cups worth of blackberries. These are fresh blackberries that I just washed up, but they've been draining for a while, so they're not sopping wet or anything. All right, I'd say that's pretty darn close. And before I forget, I'm gonna preheat my oven to 425 degrees. Next, I'm gonna add in 1/2 cup of sugar and 1/2 cup of flour. Here's our 1/2 cup of sugar. And 1/2 cup of flour. And then we just toss. And the filling is as easy as that. Then we're going to spoon the blackberries into our pie crust. need to go find a slotted spoon. All right, got my slotted spoon. I just don't want to add all this extra flour in there. I only realized this after I was all done with these pies, is that the flour and sugar mixture is supposed to go in the pie to help prevent it from becoming too soggy. So if you make this recipe, keep the flour and sugar in with your blackberries. So add it all into your pie crust. All right, so we have this flour sugar mixture left over. So I'm gonna push that off to this side and add in about 3.5 cups of blackberries into here to then fill our second pie crust. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it, not being too particular. But I don't want to dump out the flour and sugar mixture when I'm just gonna use it for the second pie. So a little piece of blossom in here. Now that I have these all coated, I'm gonna get them in the second pie crust. This recipe is just so easy. All right. Going to spread it out evenly, or as much as I can. And then next, I'm going to top each pie with 1/2 cup of just fresh blackberries. Super simple, easy as that. Now all we have to do is put the top crust on. All right, I got cleaned up a little bit. Now I'm going to add the top crust to our pies. See, I've never actually made a double crust pie before, but I'm trying my hand at it. And it says to tuck it into the pie. And I'm also learning some more that I should have folded the excess over top and not tried to tuck it into the pie. I'm just gonna take my scissors and cut off some of the excess. And see if I can get it to fit this way. Alright. And it said to pinch and seal the top crust. So I'm gonna try and fix my outer crust as I go. Now I'm just gonna reflute the outer edge. All right, that's not half bad, I guess. I'd say pretty darn good for the first time I've ever done it. All right, and now second crust.
If you've ever made a double crust pie before, you're probably cringing so hard at me doing this. I should have reread my recipe before I got started, but you live and you learn. Now I know for next time. My mom is absolutely amazing at making pies. I should have just called her and asked, but here I am thinking I don't need mom's help, but Mom, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry.
Just gonna fill in any gaps I have. All right, now that I kind of have it filled in, I'm gonna reflute this edge as well. All right, so now that I have my pies ready, they're not the prettiest pies ever, but they will do the job. I'm going to cut some slits in the pie to let all that steam escape. I'll try to make it look as pretty as possible. So I have that one done. All right, I have my vent holes all cut into it. Now we need to brush it with some milk and then add some sugar on top. So let me grab some milk real quick. All right, I just have a little dish here. I'm just gonna pour some milk into. And then brush the tops of my pies with this milk. All right. Last but not least, I'm going to take a fourth a cup of sugar and sprinkle it all over the pie. Fourth a cup seems a little overkill, so I'm using maybe an eighth of a cup. I think with the recipe that I'm following, it might be a bigger pie. and that's why it calls for 1/4 cup. But I don't want to absolutely douse the tops of these in sugar. Alrighty, spread this out a little more. Now, to get these pies in the oven, I'm gonna get them in the oven at 425 degrees for 15 minutes, and then we'll drop the temperature and bake them another 20 to 25 minutes. So I have this little bit of extra dough, and I'm gonna go ahead and make like an itty bitty, I don't know, tart, open faced tart. But I'm just gonna kind of throw this together because I don't want this pie dough to go to waste. So I'm just gonna spread it out in my little, I think it's a
6-cup
baking dish. And I'm gonna fill it with my leftover blackberries. Almost like a, yeah, almost like a tart. I've never made a tart before, but you know, first time for everything. But I figured it'd be such a waste to scrap this little bit of pie crust. All right. I have it mostly spread out. I'm gonna poke it. And then this way, I get to taste test it. I have the remaining little bit of flour and sugar. And the blackberries. Give this a good toss. And add it into our baking dish. Spread this all out. All right. And I'm gonna get this in the oven as well. All right, now all I have to do is clean up while those are in the oven. All right, now that our timer is done, we are going to drop our temperature to 375 degrees and bake for another 20 to 25 minutes. I'm gonna set mine to 22 and we'll see how that is. Man, it is late, but oh my goodness, we got our pies done. It is currently 10:04. This is usually past my bedtime with having 2 kiddos, but we are all done. We have our 2 pies and our makeshift blackberry tart. It smells like summer in here. It smells so good. I know this is going to go great with vanilla ice cream, especially while it is still warm. And these 2 pies I'm gonna let cool completely, and then I will bag them up and get them ready and labeled for tomorrow. I think in total they were probably in the oven for around, I'd say 30 minutes at 375 degrees. I just waited until the blackberries were nice and bubbly and the shell is nice and golden brown. And I think they turned out wonderfully. When I put them in the oven at first, they looked a little iffy, but now that they're baked, they look totally fine to me. I'm so glad to be able to make this for my church and be able to help donate towards their fundraiser. And I'm just really happy with how they turned out. So thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, comment, and subscribe. And I cannot wait to see you all in the next one. Bye.